This is Devin. Good to almost see you. I am back again with Writing Daily. Every single day, we put together a new cast about writing more, writing better, doing more things with your writing, exposing, actually, I was about to say exposing yourself. I think that's probably not the right vernacular I was looking for, but putting yourself out there into the world for marketing and promotions and being the best writer that you possibly can be. So I am your host. I'm Devin Galaudet. I am the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler and the author of the forthcoming book, which we talk about a fair amount, 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes. So yesterday, I did something ridiculous, which was I ran out and put on a special one-off podcast for an individual person. I never heard from him. And that's fine. And maybe I will, and maybe I won't. The point is that I took some action towards it. And that's what today's episode is all about. It's about taking risks in your writing and your presentation because you just got to do it once in a while. Anyway, the backstory is that I didn't speak directly to a person at an event that I wanted to. I thought I was a good match for, and it didn't pan out. So I went over the top and made a special video just for her. And maybe she's seen it, maybe she hasn't, and that's okay. It's not. You don't kind of take risks in order to have it at 100%. What I will say is this. There's a couple things that I want to say is that I think a lot of good writing, actually, let me back up. Really, there's a lot of not great writing out there that's not very memorable or not very interested. And I'm referring a little bit more towards the creative writing aspect, things that are more literary in nature rather than a how-to book. But I would argue that in a how-to book, you still want to take some chances. So what do I mean by taking chances? That means there are times when we are sitting at our computer and we are writing a story. And we want to do something ridiculous in the story, or the character wants to do something ridiculous in the story, something that we may find abhorrent or politically incorrect or wrong, or, I mean, we come up with a whole variety of things. And then what we do is we take that thing away from that character, right? Or we take it away from ourselves. We don't want to say the line, even if it's completely truthful, because we're afraid that we're going to upset somebody or we're going to hurt the status quo in some way, and that people aren't going to like me. So one of the things that I did on this event from the other day, and again, I did a pretty good job at getting people to be interested in me being a guest on their podcast, was that I don't want to talk about specifically what I did, but I do want to say that when I put myself out there, I put myself out there where the audience could absolutely say, you know, Devin is an absolute jerk. I want nothing to do with him. I really took a total chance, and I think it paid off. I think what I shot for was going as human and diabolically honest as possible. And so that was part of the presentation. I knew that going in, that, you know, I'm taking a risk here by saying things that maybe a lot of people aren't willing to say. And I think that kind of set me apart, which I think is of benefit. But I think this is even more critical when you are writing. Again, I personally don't believe it really matters. I think it lends itself more towards to more creative writing, again, like short literary stories, novels, memoirs, where you really kind of want to get, I think, dirty isn't the right word. I'm not talking about like saying dirty words. I'm not saying that, although that could be it. But I think we're at a time and place in life where even though there's, you know, sort of like a taboo against saying dirty words, you know, that has been kind of run over for the most part. I mean, there's all kinds of coarse language. My book is filled with it, and I don't think that's particularly shocking or exciting or new, right? If it was the 1800s, saying certain word would have been quite shocking. Today, I think far less so. But what it means is that there are times where I'm going to write something and I'm going to say, ooh, I don't know if I want to go there. And to be quite honest with you, that to me is a sign more often than not that I should be going there. You have to take risks in either exposing who it is that you are on the page, or being so brutally upfront and honest. And I'm not talking about, okay, so we're going to get into I'm going to go off on a quick tangent. And the tangent is kind of, he was one of the greatest comedians of all time. And his name will come to me in a second. Sort of like a politically minded genius. But anyway, one of the things, George Carlin. So George Carlin talked about the idea of punching up. And punching up basically means if there is a beggar in the street, that's the guy you don't need to make fun of. Can you make fun of the billionaire in an ivory tower? I think that you can, because that's punching up. In other words, somebody who's far above you in social status, but somebody who's below you is not something that you want to do. You don't want to pick on the little guy, because I don't think it serves a purpose. It's not necessarily funny. And it doesn't do anything for your writing. But so what I'm saying is that you want to take a chance by of really putting yourself out there. I think you can always make fun of yourself. I think that's something that's easy to do. I think that's something that I tend to do well, because I'm a total knucklehead, and so I can just embrace that, and I don't have to worry about picking on anybody or making fun of anybody. But I want to tend to focus on the things that really are sort of like on what my edge is. Whatever my edge is of like, okay, that's okay to talk about, or that's okay to say. I want to say the thing that is going to make me a little bit uncomfortable, that it's going to push my writing to an edge. So I will take the edge out to an end or to an extreme, and then I will explore it a little bit before we move on. So that means that I've talked about my feelings in a real honest way that don't necessarily put me in a really positive light. Like one of the things that I had to, once I finished my book, I quite literally, and I've talked about this story and I'm going to talk about it 100 more times, is I sat down with my mother mostly to say, hey, listen, I said a lot of very frank things in this book and nobody looks good. Because I wanted her to know that I don't look good, my father doesn't look good, my mother doesn't really look good. Anybody who appears in the book at all is not there to be looking good. And it's a gray area. Like, in other words, I don't believe that I was punching down, trying to insult the person, the innocent person who had nothing to do with it. I think it had much more to do with the way I was responding to situations and being honest about my feelings in those situations where other people happen to be a part of. So it's not a book of compliments, but I think at the same time, if I was writing a book that was very much conciliatory to all of these things that I was be potentially hurting people's feelings, then I wouldn't have written the book that I was written. I don't believe that I am being insulting, other than just sort of like calling myself out on my own nonsense. So that said, the other aspect is that I don't want to, as a writer, be really conscious about how others are going to be perceiving me. I don't want to be worried too much that I'm pleasing or displeasing somebody, because really what I owe is I owe a reader my authentic story. If they don't like that, I'm okay with that. I understand. I'm not going to be able to please everybody. And that's just kind of the way it goes. But the point is that if you don't like the story that I wrote because I changed my story in order to make somebody else potentially feel good, that's the wrong way to tell a story. So we keep trying and we keep writing. And again, if you are at home right now and you're putting pen to paper and you're having some sort of an idea in your head and you don't want to go there, I would say you have to go there. I think you want to keep writing to make the story as good as it can possibly be, as authentic as it can possibly be, as human as it can possibly be. And we are flawed and imperfect as a species. I mean, there's lots of nobility, and we do a lot of things right. And, we do a lot of things that are right and warm and loving. And as an example, when I talk about my father, it's not that he was just a terrible guy, and it's not that he was just a fantastic guy. So part of the exploration of my relationship with him is that we go to, here's the stuff that when he was not a great guy, it's a lot of he wasn't, it's like I really chose to explore that and embrace that. And when I talk about loving him as, as a son idolizes their father, I went that direction too. And I tried to go with each direction as authentically and honestly as possible. And that needed to measure to my standards of truth. So you try to take it out to the end and you do the very best you can. So anyway, if you like what we're doing here, if you like what I'm doing, please consider hitting the like button. I think it is all over these different screens. Follow me on Twitter. I'm going to start getting my social media stuff going. I think towards the end of this week, we're going to start putting up our first giveaway, which I think is going to be a fun, exciting thing. And stay with me for tomorrow, where we're going to talk about more writing daily. And thanks for joining me today.